Why don't we commence? Because there's some music, I'm going to.
Thanks for the reminder.
So, call the meeting to order, and as we usually do when we have guest speakers, Darien Marine Police Unit, Officer Mulcahy and Officer Martin are here to give us their end of the year report, which we did last year, I think quite successfully. Really enjoyed that. And so we thought we, with the meeting called to order, just go right at that and let you guys get out as early as you can. So.
Sure, that sounds good. As you mentioned, I'm Derek Mulcahy, Jimmy Martin. I recognize most people here, but if anyone doesn't know us, that's who we are.
It's a closed meeting?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, no, you Coastal Commission?
Yeah.
Yeah, please sit. Welcome to attend. Thank you. We've just started.
So we were asked to come in, just do a little review of our year and fill you guys in, and any questions anytime, stop me. I don't have anything formal prepared, just a slight overview. We had what we consider pretty much a quiet season. We didn't have any real injuries. We had some injuries. We didn't have any like boat accident related injuries. I guess we had more like medical calls out there. We didn't have anybody die. We didn't have any missing boaters. So for us, we consider that a good year. We do small stuff outside of that. Some of our neighboring jurisdictions weren't as lucky, but we have been for quite some time. I can't remember last time we did anything really significant, thankfully. Excuse me, with my phone, but I wrote some notes down. Some of more the PR type things we did this year, we'll start with that. We always do fireworks. This year we did Westport, Norwalk, Stanford, and we're waiting. That's a busy week for us, but we all help each other out as far as the other agencies. They're vastly outnumbered when they have the fireworks, a couple hundred boats up against 2 or 3 law enforcement vessels. Yeah. So it's nice to get out there and kind of show our numbers and our presence and help out. So we didn't have any significant events during that week, which is nice. That's kind of our busy, hectic week. And I feel like once we get through that, we're kind of coasting for the rest of the summer. We also participated in the flotilla event. Did you work that day?
Yeah. It was good.
You were there, yeah?
Right.
It was good.
Yeah.
So it's good when they all they paddleboard over into Stanford Harbor. Yep. So a lot of people out on the water. We did that the last 2 years, I want to say now. The events
yeah, this year was not rough, and it was everybody got in safely, I think, right?
There was that one woman with her dog on the boat that just had to get
stragglers.
towed in at the end.
At the end, you're happy to tow them in, get them done.
Yeah.
What else did we do? We did the kids camp. You're part of that also, right?
Our squadron?
That was
you were
great.
there.
Yeah,
That was a good day.
that was great. The kids really got a lot out of you
Yeah.
guys being there at the dock and
Yeah.
being out on the water.
So since we got the new boat, I think a lot of you know we don't take kids aboard. The boat's just not great for having kids on it. With the low sides on it, we don't want anyone to get tossed off. And then in the event something bad happens, we need to be able to go and kind of respond to it. But I think the kids still, with our presence, we still kind of are able to get enough.
They went. Did they go on? I didn't see when they went out. You were tied up at the end of the pier. Did you have them on the boat there or not on the boat?
Some from the kids camp did, but they're actually the Neurotin Yacht Club camp that was there took advantage of the opportunity. And they sent all their campers down and went out on the boat too. So hey, why not? Usually every summer we end up going over there at some point. They ask us to go, so all the kids can see it as well. So that's a great day, as you guys know. We participate in the Coast Guard Regional Search and Rescue. They do twice a year. They didn't do one this fall for some reason, but we did in the springtime. That's always a great drill for us. Basically, Coast Guard brings out their big boat and they simulate a search and rescue mission, and then we coordinate with all the different agencies, and they put a Coast Guard person on each of our boats, so kind of teach us how we can all work together. I always get a lot out of that as far as the search and rescue patterns and what they expect from us.
That's just in the Darien area? You're not called to go to Port Jefferson or?
So what they do is they split up Region 1 into 2 groups. So they will do from Greenwich to Fairfield. We'll all meet in one pre-decided location. So this year was Norwalk. So everyone from this area goes that day, and then they'll have another one further up the line where those groups work together. So it's nice because we're working with the agencies that we're realistically going to work with in a scenario. Port Jeff. Yeah, if there's an incident on that, we would probably be going up to that because we go to all the meetings where we train and go over that kind of situation. But that's a little bit far. It would be a little later getting there.
So this is about like getting assigned a quadrant, and then you learn your search pattern, and
Exactly.
you all do the same thing and keep in communication.
Yep. So we would get out there and we basically hail Coast Guard. We're like, hey, it's Darien Marine Police. We're on scene, and they'd be like, okay, we want you to go to this line long. We have to get to it, and we want you to do an expanding square for X amount of time, and then report back with your findings. And then each each unit out there is assigned a different location for maximum coverage, so we're not all just doing our own thing and searching the same area and missing things. So their patterns are set up from their main base with all their computers and programs, and they're taking in the wind and weather and thinking the best possible area to find somebody. So there's a lot of logic and thought put into this.
And is your expanding square, is it executed electronically? Like you put in your start and then you work it from beeps on the GPS, if you will?
Kind of. There's a lot more like user input put into it. So we do go to an exact lat and long to start, and then it's more a set speed, timing, and calculated turns. So 90-degree turns, and you're probably somewhat familiar with some of these, right?
We use the compass. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
pointing to me. But yeah, we use the GPS or the compass settings and just make 90-degree turns.
And you have a guy with a timer, and you have a guy driving, and it's very calculated, so you do it properly. Yeah, there's a little bit to it. That's why these trainings are good, because you can read about it, but unless you go out and do it, they can be kind of tricky.
Yeah. So the ultimate goal is to like find a man overboard or find a kayaker. Do you take into account tide and wind as well?
Yes, and that's the Coast Guard takes that into account when they assign us our area. So we're just like one little person part of the bigger project.
Okay.
And that's what's kind of neat about it, because we don't ever practice like that, and it's nice. So they have the big ship out there giving us all our assignments. We report back, and then they give us another one. So they do a pretty good job creating these like mock scenarios. So
They can put in data such as if the person's wearing a life vest, what they're wearing, male, female, age, just to kind of generate what that person's makeup is and what he's wearing, and then they come up with how far with the currents and the wind. They can put everything into that, and then kind of figure out where it should be. And then where like a debris field is found, all that is reported back, and then they can chart it up on their big screens and move from there.
Can you tell us about the kayaker that you did rescue?
The one, in the early, when was that? April?
Isn't there one like
we had a couple of different
we
things.
had one like 2 months ago?
More recently, yeah.
The more recent one was really rough out. It was probably 4 to 5 maybe out there. They were a father and son. The son was 25, and they were coming back from Norwalk, and the father was trailing behind. He had thought the son went onto the west side of the point. However, he continued past the point. So when the father came around the point, on the west side of the point, he didn't see his son, and that's when he made the call. And he thought the son had gone out south of the point. So we made contact with the father. We went out to the south of the point and didn't find anything. And we came back in, followed the wind, the tides, and he was off of Norotan Bay, closer to Norotan Bay, about half a mile off of Norotan Bay. He was overboard. His kayak was a sitting kayak, so he was, fully submerged. But he had a life preserver on. He was in good health, young kid, strong kid. So we got him on board and brought him in, and then the fireman brought the father back to the boat club, and then we got them all back to where they came out of the Gulf.
This is an open cockpit, no skirt, not a sit-on either.
It was a sit-in.
Sit-in,
So
open
there
cockpit.
was no way to,
It's not sealed up at all. Yeah.
No.
So they really got separated before he capsized.
Correct. He went around the point and they lost sight of each other, and I think that's where they went bad. And because it was so rough, it was pretty hard to see far away. Because you're only
When
so
you're that
far.
low. Yeah.
Do you know if they own those boats or if they were renting them?
He owned them. The father was an outdoorsman, so he tried to have a father-son day. So he had kayaks, but that didn't work out too well.
PFD.
Yes.
So
He had the inflatable ones. Yeah.
okay.
Which actually worked really well.
No radio.
He had it on correctly, and
No radio though, or signaling.
no, he did not have anything. The father had the cell phone, and that's where he made the
Just
call.
a cell phone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
His wife's going to be on that like a dog on a bone.
I think there was more.
Awesome points.
Do you want to talk about the other kayak situation? Or on top of
Yeah,
kayaks?
that quick storm that came in, we were actually at the dock, and everybody was kind of going sideways in the harbor. And then Brian, Brian from the boat club, he came down. He said you have 2 kayakers off of the Tony Beach Club in the water. Same thing, open. So we came around the point, and we started looking. We saw one kayak, a red kayak, right off of the east side of the point. looked around, didn't see anything, but we had to go to the other location of the known people in the water. So we went over there, picked those two out of the water. One of the females was actually in pretty bad shape, so we put her inside the closed cabin where the closed cabin comes into play. You know, we have little blankets and stuff to keep them warm. So she ended up being dehydrated, and she spent the night in the hospital for a little bit of hypothermia, and that was okay. So we dropped them, we came in the harbor, we dropped them off, and then we went back out to the other kayak, and it turns out it was, that was a husband and wife. The wife had made it to shore, and the husband was still out there, and he got separated from his kayak, but he was able to make it to shore also. But there was a lot of confusion, a lot of radio traffic, a lot of conflicting reports, which made the whole day the whole scene a little bit confusing.
As an empty kayak, haven't
Yeah.
found the right
That was
people
actually
associated with it.
she swam up on our beach, and so I was with her, and the first thing that I was thinking is like I could see you guys like 3/4 of a mile away, picking up the red kayak, thinking, oh, now you're going to be looking for a person, and she's right here with me. But the interesting question was how to actually notify, you guys out on the water as quickly, because everything
Well,
was
just through
lit
our
up.
dispatch
Yeah.
would be the best way, just to give them everything that we have about the name, of course, and then where they came from. Because a lot of times we're looking for where they originated from, and where they're
Right.
going, just kind of like their trip. But that was pretty confusing because
When you say dispatch,
Yeah, would that be 911 or?
911. I mean, on a day like that, you can't even get airtime on 16, right? Just, Coast Guard was completely
Yeah,
inundated.
yeah.
911 goes right to us, clear. They can ask all the questions. Our dispatchers are now trained in what to ask for water emergencies, and that's what we need.
A lot of times when we're in town, they recommend just calling the police department directly instead of 911 because it gets there faster. Would that be a better alternative?
911 to be faster.
911 would be faster.
Yeah, but you can call either number. In an emergency, I'd say 911 because if multiple phones are ringing, they're going to answer 911, and the routine line goes unanswered until they can get to it.
So these are both warm water kayak emergencies. Was there something in the cold in April?
well, the water I think was 65
Yeah,
in
that's.
April, right? Yeah, that's 65.
Oh no, that would.
that sounds
Could have been
too
colder. It would have been. I don't
Maybe
know. Kayak
this-
until
this-
mid-May, and it's just hitting like 50, low 50s.
Yeah, the latest one was 65, I believe. I'm not sure, I don't really remember.
It was around that, yeah.
But they were in the water, the two women off the Tokyo Beach Club were in the water for probably about 20 minutes, to my understanding.
Toll on them with one.
Yeah.
It's quick. Yeah.
How are people feeling about paddle boards and kayaks with people having their name on them? Is it? I don't see the racks down at the boat club, but do you feel like
we
people are
encourage
complying
people,
with that?
but we're like way in non-compliance. There's a lot of boards and kayaks without names on them, and we is that a law now or?
It's not, but it's Coast Guard pushes for it big time because you know what it can start if it's found floating around.
I think some
absolutely.
states require it. I don't think Connecticut
Yeah,
does.
like when you found that red kayak out there without an owner, you'd be like, it would have been a lot easier if you'd get that name and just track that family down.
And those stickers, I believe I could get my hands on those. I think they're either through Deep or Coast Guard. I think they're Deep. And if we need those, I can.
Right. No, we have
get those
stickers
too,
at
right?
Boat Club, but I literally every single email that I sent out last summer said, please, make sure your name's on your kayak or your board.
It's even better when you're not looking for somebody on, but the kayak on somebody's lawn floats away.
Well,
and then you guys are required to, perform a search.
Right.
To
Stanford had found a canoe that was overturned, filled with fishing gear, to the point where the guy actually had a fish on the line. So there was nobody around, but there's a porgy on the end of the line. So that's telling you. I mean, somebody was with this boat, and it was a windy morning, right? I think it was a Sunday morning, and it took up. We had the helicopter come, or Stanford had the helicopter come, Coast Guard, us, Greenwich came up. So it was a lot of assets, and I don't even know what happened with that.
You worked on the busy days this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there for everything.
They've got a lot of guys who leave the shores in the rinkiest little boats and go to lone rocks, and go fishing.
That's exactly what
all
it is.
hours of the
Off the
morning.
coast, you see that a lot.
I'll go up kayaking like at 5:30, and there'll be guys out there who've come out and not even things that are boats. I mean, they're just little rafts they put together. It's amazing.
Yeah.
questions? Let's move back to my list.
Get back to this. Yeah, interesting.
General question, when does your boat go in the water and when does it come out?
It's always in, but we staff it Memorial Day through Labor Day. If we're getting really bad freezing coming up and the harbor's going to freeze over, I'll probably have it pulled and put on the trailer. Because at that point, it's no use to anyone. It's going to be a Coast Guard situation. But yeah, we always have it in. And it's always available if we need it.
Do you have a bubbler down at the boat club?
We do, yeah.
But still, you worry about it dead of winter.
Yeah, because even then, even if my spot's thawed out or our spot can't get out the harbor, it's no good to us. And we've been down there with our bubbler, and we're trying to break ice, and it's kind of an unnecessary stress that you don't need. It's a valuable boat. We don't want anything to happen to it. So one year I got caught off guard. I didn't realize what kind of freeze we had coming in, and I wish it had been taken out. So try to watch it. Some other things we mentioned the kayaks.
Spiking trespassing.
Yeah, we have an ongoing complaint from the Ziegler property, which everyone's probably familiar with. That is, people are driving down there and getting dropped off, and their friends on boats are pulling up and picking them up. It's become more of a problem, and we've been trying to watch it.
I'm sorry, Eric, I don't understand.
So people are.
I'm guilty.
Okay.
I was told to bring my son down and drop him off at the dock, and I did. So, I can see where that happens.
Yeah. So people are coming in, dropping people off, and it's getting more and more common. So we have a standing order there that they don't want any people coming in, and it's clearly signed up, no trespassing. So the guys on patrol on the road often kind of sit on there busy Saturdays and Sundays as well and try to help us out from the land side. Jimmy actually arrested a few people this summer there.
I arrested a couple of people. Well, they were kind of
there was more to it.
young adults, but they had.
I think I read about that.
Yeah. Because I honestly think some people don't want to come down and see us at Darien Boat Club and head out, so it's easier to bring whatever they have in that way. I don't know. It's a theory of mine. So that day that was kind of the case.
For the record, my kid didn't have any alcohol that day.
So that's something we're going to be keeping a close eye on next year, and hopefully we can kind of get that to calm down a little bit and stop. And the people that own Ziegler's are always just worried about lawsuits. They've had people climbing on the rocks, trespassing there, people jumping in, diving, getting hurt, and suing them. So it's happened in the past. So I can see where they're coming from.
Right, and they have damage at the beach house, the white log cabin that's there. So the kids go in there and they don't not only stay in there, they kind of trash the place. So they're not being courteous, and then they're parking cars down there and mopeds and stuff. So it was really getting worse and worse. So they asked us to kind of take care of it.
How about Fisher Island?
I was just going to bring that up. Haven't heard anything from that family, but it's kind of nearing completion. I assume it'll be ready by next summer, so we'll have to see where that goes. We'll kind of go based on what they want to do. It's technically private property, so we'll enforce it as much as they want it to be. We'll kind of go from there. But I imagine they got
technically private up to the high water mark.
Correct.
Public.
Down, sorry.
Down to correct. Yeah. So I know they've put out their no trespassing signs and ropes and this and that. I believe those get pushed back by people gradually and give themselves more room. So. It's a difficult thing for us to enforce just due to our ability to get in there at different tides, and we can't always be there. The second you turn your back, people move in. But if they're moved in there, we'll have a discussion with them, and we'll come up with some kind of game plan and go from there. If nothing else, maybe just put something out to the public that this is what the new expectations are, and see if we can get compliance. So, anything else you want to
Speeding this year, last year I remember speeding was
My
an
favorite
issue.
issue.
Tom?
Because Bill just said, speed in the harbor,
Speed in the harbor.
speed on the coast.
Yeah. Ongoing problem. I didn't. Tom was a great host. I didn't see as much blatant violations as I had in the past. We spent a good amount of time sitting out at the buoy at the end of the harbor. I didn't see anyone really ripping out of there. Every year we get at least a handful of them. This year we didn't come across that as much. I think, as we've talked about before, a lot of it comes down to if people come in and it's outside of our hours and our boat is tied up there, then probably it's a free fall when they want to come in and out. So I'm sure whether our car's in the parking lot has some effect on it as well. So, but you want to weigh in at all?
No, it's a known problem,
Yeah.
including with the launches. The launches drive way too fast for the pumpers. Both launches. And it's just, it starts there.
Yeah, well, we can have a talk with them before the season starts next year.
Right.
We always meet with the Norton Yacht Club at the beginning of the seasons and we talk about things and we'll bring that up again. And the boat club. It was a turnover and you guys driving their launches, so we'll go over that.
How do you fare this year on observation of paddleboarders and kayakers without PFDs? I remember that was a sore point last year.
Yeah, it is, and it's constantly telling people to carry them. I think people are getting better. I definitely saw more compliance this year as far as it. But there's obviously still some people, and I think most people just don't know. Again, they're not aware of the law of it. Most people we tell are surprised. Sometimes we just sit at the opening of 5 Mile River. There's a dock there. If that boat's not there, we'll just sit there, and as they're coming out, you got to go back in. Can't do it. So it makes it easier for us. They kind of come to us on the way out. What do you think? I think people are getting better. Do you agree?
Yeah, they just don't know because they're new to paddleboarding.
Did Connecticut change the time? Do you need to wear or have with you a life vest at all times?
When you're paddleboarding?
Paddleboarding?
You need to have one with you, yes.
And that's a change from...
No, it's been the same in the last few years. Because it's a Coast Guard, they consider paddleboard a vessel, unless it's in like a surf zone. So then it'd be like a surfboard. But anytime you're outside of a surf zone, it's a vessel and you need to have a life jacket with you.
Right, so is that the same with kayaks as well?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to have them with them. And again, once you're in the warm weather season, was it May 30th? I don't know the exact date, you just have to have a windshield. Whereas in the cold weather, you have to be wearing it.
Right, and is there like a combined water temperature, air temperature, or something
It's
like
a
that?
date cutoff.
Oh, date.
Yeah, a specific date. Is it May 31st?
I think so.
I think it's May 31st and maybe September 1st. Outside of those, you have to wear it.
You don't have to have a boating certificate, though, I think, for...
That's right.
That's for engine...
Correct.
Yeah, that's sort of funny, because there's a lot of good information in a boating certificate that a paddleboarder would make use of.
Yeah, that's true. Touched on most things.
Staffing? They want to know staffing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we added.
Yeah, we're not seeing you anymore, right? Down at the water?
I'm not completely out, so I think I'll be doing more like the scheduling and kind of the organizing. I'm hoping to work a couple shifts here and there, but we did add a couple guys this year. We added Chris Jimenez, who's been with the agency probably about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And Luke Gannon, who's been on about 4 years. And they were on the second half of the summer. I think they're both doing a really good job. I have high hopes. They're kind of getting right into it, doing well, handling the boat, learning the laws. It takes a while, though, to really get comfortable driving that boat and knowing what to do in all the different situations that we face at times. But I think after another season, they'll be in pretty good shape.
Right. That would be better than driving the twin-engine dual hull boat you had.
It's so much easier.
When you took me out on that thing, boy, it was actually
Yeah, that was. I'm glad that's gone. The new boat's 3 years now. It's doing great. I'm very happy with it. So,
How many hours do you have on the engine? Just curious.
about 700.
Okay,
Yeah, not too bad.
so
Yeah.
$250 a year.
Yeah, about that. So, yeah, we often go out there and cut it off and just let the generator run the electronics and things like that, and wait for someone to speed out of the harbor. But nobody did, so.
Will you continue to be our ex officio member of the commission?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, happy to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to.
I kind of tried to relay at my job that I would like to stay involved. I've enjoyed the unit. I think I've been on it about 9 or 10 years. I do like it. I would hate to kind of completely get removed from it. So if I can keep my hand in it some way, I'd like that. So
you're sort of keeping a supervisory role or a knowledge transfer role?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Like this year, now I have the ability to put our schedule in our software, right, which I didn't have before, which made all of our lives easier, right? And it took it away from the higher ups in our agency. And I'm happy to do that because I kind of know what we need and what works best for us. So I think it works out nicely for everybody.
Is there anything we should be thinking about that would help you in terms of, we're more on the policy side, or we could be horsepower in some other way. Do you see where we might plug in to your efforts in some way?
I don't know exactly. I mean, I think if we like what Tom mentioned, getting people to put like tags and names on their kayaks, and I don't know if that's necessarily your responsibility, but the boat club and little things like that can really save a lot of man hours.
We've got
fine things.
Eric Barrett is thinking up a safety project for Pam Geary to do as she gives people kayak rack space.
Okay.
Like give them, some information or put more stuff on kayak racks about safety. So I hadn't thought about that. I don't think Eric had either. But
Or maybe that could be part of having your kayak at the.
That you have to do that,
it's a
yeah.
requirement. But that's a pretty good idea.
It seems to me part of that also is education of people of like, why do we want these things? Because at some level it sort of seems like, oh, who cares about this?
Right.
But when you start to think about, well, if this thing gets blown off, or that they're going to have like mount a big search for me without having a number to call, then it becomes more compelling to just put your sticker on there so your name's on.
I agree. We found a dinghy floating around one day, and we had this thing for hours trying to figure out who owned it. There's a few letters on the back. So
was
finally,
it deflated inflatable? It was like 2/3 inflated?
no, this was going back a little further than that one. But we finally tracked down this lady, and we're waiting, and we just, we had it on our truck, and we just brought it to her. And she kind of laughs off. She's like, "Oh, thank you." I'm like, "All right, we'll cancel the helicopter." And she laughs, and I'm like, "No, I'm being very serious. Like, we had the Coast Guard is starting a full-on search and rescue because your thing was found out there, and I think it kind of sunk in, like, how serious this stuff is taken." So
Yeah,
you're
people don't
absolutely right.
understand why it's important to do that, I think.
Right. That's a good point.
Is there a point at which a person's at fault, they become responsible for the cost? Is it negligence or gross negligence? There's
I don't know.
a similar concept with mountain climbing, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you are grossly negligent and you have to get rescued, like in New Hampshire, you may be getting a bill.
So one of the guys we worked with previously who left, he had been in the Coast Guard, and he had told me that yes, you could be billed for it. That's only hearsay from him. I can't tell you for sure, and I don't know the answer to
So
that. But it wouldn't surprise
anecdotally,
me.
it's unusual. You haven't seen it in practice.
I haven't seen it, no. And I think if it was something that came down to more of like a hoax, like that hot air balloon situation, then I think, yeah, you would see something like that.
But it might be, as we get into the spring next year, as people start to get their boats ready, it might be that it would be good to even get a story in the newspaper, getting your stuff down to the beach, but to have one of you guys quoted or something, saying, here's why it's important to do this.
Yeah.
Right, they need an explanation.
Yeah, that might be something we should try to remember to do next
We
year.
could do that if you touch base with us in the spring.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to some people with Darien Times.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
not
they'd be more
hard
than
to
happy
get.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, to have really basically you authoring it and some more, we're co-structuring it with you, that would be a great message.
The other thing we could do is work with Parks and Rec as they issue beach passes, because that's an in-office requirement. And so, have the stickers for the kayaks and the paddleboards there, and ask the question. Have them ask the question: do you have the paddleboard? Do you know you're required to have a sticker on it or something? We can look into that.
I know one time I had approached Parks and Recs, but we never followed through. But about putting, I guess, a sign up at the kayak racks, just saying that legally you have to have a life jacket with you. Just a simple thing, just to inform people. So
That's what Eric has stepped up for. He's trying to get a Eagle Scout involved in the project and to rope in Pam Geary and all, that type of thing.
Yep, that's
What
perfect.
other ideas would be good?
yeah, I like that. Just to let people know.
Because I had this in my mind because every spring, you get the April, May great weather, but you still have winter level temperatures in the water. And every spring, somewhere on either the New York side or the Connecticut side, you hear about one or two horrible events. They're just really spooky things. And that's bound to come to our harbor someday. So we might as well do as much as we can to try to stop that.
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for not only coming tonight, but also all your service during the course of the year. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Great. Same time next year.
All right, sounds good.
Plus the barbecue in between.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Great meeting.
Take care. Good meeting. Thanks a lot.
I like that concept that they sit there and the violators come to them. It's not a bad way to run it. So I was going to be fairly quick, and then Harbor's Master Report and Shellfish Report, and I wanted to then focus on the standing committee idea while we all had some life in us before 9 o'clock came up. I'll be pretty brief on the chairman's thing. So I sent this around electronically, but I'll just pass it around hard copy. The Long Island Sound Beach Report that was released by Save the Sound, 2016 to 2018. That was a pretty nice review, except for one rating that I think it's Weed Beach got for dry weather readings, where we got a poor grade. David Knopf disputed some of their interpretation of the data. He said they seem to have misread several of the readings that were posted. I guess these are EPA readings that his crew and others posted. But we got not bad grades. That's a report just focusing on pollution, so bacteria rather than the health of the waters per se, which is what UWS is monitoring. Anyway, just for your taking a look at that, I've tagged with yellow the pages that refer directly to our beaches, bottom left there. Yeah. Brief thing, went to Earth Place and saw for the second time Senator Chris Murphy talk about legislation he's passed to help Long Island Sound. He's really making quite an effort to swing by the shoreside communities in Connecticut and let us know what he's doing for the waters. And this was the Save Our Seas Act 2.0. Really focused on marine debris, and a lot of it's very high governmental level stuff, but I think the thing to appreciate is we have a senator who's very actively trying to bring money to the state, money to the efforts into the EPA's Long Island Sound study. So it was an impressive meeting with him. The other thing I wanted to bring up, has anyone heard about the week's barge controversy off Greenwich?
I thought that went away.
No, it's just brewing. So
There was something in the paper. I thought is that the one?
Was that where they're going to park it for the waypoint to get into Stamford Harbor?
Exactly. So it's like 6 potential barge moorings.
Huge barge.
Huge barges. These are the ones that they have them sitting inside of Stamford Harbor, as is. There's like 4 or 6 that go in there, but now they want to make others.
I thought that got tabled.
Well, as of October 15, it was a live issue. It's gone up to deep for my latest reading of things.
No, I thought the guy withdrew the request.
He withdrew one request and put in another. He withdrew the one that the Greenwich Point Conservancy was objecting to. He resurrected an old plan, which sounded a little less controversial.
I didn't hear that part.
And has reinserted it. And I don't know a lot about it, but Stamford's Harbor Commission considered it on October 7th, and they didn't table it. They just said we'll reserve judgment to see what DEEP comes up with, and now it's up with DEEP. It's beyond our view of our harbors and shorelines, but just imagine if that's turned down and they might want to say, hey, let's do something between Stamford and Darien. That's within our view. So, Greenwich is dealing with something that could well be our issue in another
This is
year
inside
or
the
day.
breakways or outside?
Outside.
Outside.
Yeah, so, you can see the business reason for it, but obviously waters are complicated places and it conflicts with people's enjoyment of the beautiful surround.
Talk through the business point actually for my benefit.
Well, I don't think I can, other than that there's an industry that's, I think it's called ONG Industries, which does sand and gravel mixing, and that's way up on the West Branch. And they may even have something on East Branch also, or maybe that's other barges for other things, but I think I've seen sand there too. Anyway, they just, in terms of logistics of shuffling their barges in and out, they utilize big moorings inside Stamford Harbor, inside the breakwater, and I guess there's times where it would be helpful for them to have more of an inventory of barges for
I
logistics
think it's
ease.
a staging issue of when they're out in the trunk of the Sound, they can carry like 3 or 4 barges, but they can, I believe, because of the narrow confines of the West Branch of the harbor, they can only take one of them up there at a time. And in fact, even with that, last year one of them got out of control and smashed a sailboat. So I think it's a staging issue where they park them there and then they go So I don't know if there are limits on how long they can keep them there, all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm not sure on all that, and I suspect that will, be in the deep discussion. But I wondered, this is just me talking off the cuff, if we ought to look into this more, several of us, and sort of, at the moment, the Stanford Harvard Commission's deferred any thought or judgment. They've just said we reserve the right as it goes through the process with DEEP to intervene or have more say in it. And I don't know what their legal grounds might be or teeth, but that's how they've handled it procedurally at the moment. But the question I had was, almost for comedy, like to a neighboring town, Greenwich, and or some folks in Stanford who might object to this. Maybe we should have a friendly, like amicus brief we file with either DEEP or Stanford Harvard Commission or something, because again, if it's not the Greenwich side, perhaps it could be the Darien side, and we could be facing this type of issue ourselves.
I don't see how that would affect us. I mean, the barges are, it's a long way.
It doesn't currently affect us, no.
Yeah, so
The concept would be, do we want to join more of a solid block with people in Greenwich and Stanford?
I
who
don't
might disagree
honestly
with this?
know. First of all, I don't know that much about it, but I don't know that I understand the business case or the pros and the cons enough
I don't either.
to even think that I would. Yeah, I don't. It's not intuitive to me that I would have an objection to it.
I'm not sure I would either. It may cause their inner harbor to work much more easily.
Right.
I don't know. The question would be, do we first take a look, because if it's needless or
I think it's worth
unnecessary.
monitoring it just to see, but my personal inclination is I would not go on record, one way or the other. It's not really our issue.
it's also technically state waters. So I mean, even the Stanford Harbor Commission doesn't really have that much say in it.
May be or may not. I don't disagree with you. I just know if it was happening off Darien, I wouldn't accept that as a limit on my actions.
I understand, but
Anyway.
that's something you'd like to do, right?
It's not something necessarily like, do I bring it up for, just this discussion?
I think Flip is right. It's that we don't have enough information about what's going on, where it sits, and to make it what a funny term, a friend of the court briefing or something like that. There's nothing to say.
Well, so
It's just like
I
good
guess
luck.
I bring it out because if you all want to take a look at it and discover more, and if you think there's something that we ought to do, and I don't know if there is, I agree. I think it's worth us all poking around a bit if you have an interest in doing so.
Wait, so what's the name of the company that wants
So
to do this?
Weeks,
Marine Inc.
Weeks.
and the Greenwich Point Conservancies at the moment sort of led the objection, and it did land in front of the Harbor Commission.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure, quite frankly, that the people who live out there on those points don't want to see a bunch of barges.
So this is a not in my backyard, yeah. I mean,
Right.
my life's been financing power plants, and everybody hates a power plant. But you need them somewhere, so,
Yeah, there's an article, just for the record, Greenwich Free Press, October 5. The company held a public information meeting at Stanford Government Center where they presented the proposal for the barge mooring. So, per what Bill was saying, it's active.
Just one mooring, or?
No, it's more.
It's a
I
more.
think it's 4 to 6 barges can be at whatever amount of, It's industrialization of our waters. Now, maybe that's okay because they won't be there enough, but I do think it requires good thought by all the interested people on the water. So, if any of you have got an interest in looking into that more, I'm going to try to read up a little more, and if we all get more of a thought about if there's anything we should do, let's bring it up at the next meeting or two, but I don't disagree with anything that's being said. Just the last thing, in that Linda O'Leary has reminded me that everybody's reappointments are up and need to happen, and so what I think would be appropriate is, assuming you all want to continue serving, just to send me an email with that desire, and I will forward things on to Linda for her putting forward to the Board of Selectmen. And I'll send out an email to that effect since we have a lot of people out anyway. That's it for me, and so Harbor Master and Shellfish.
Nothing dramatically to report from the harbor master standpoint, except an accident that happened in the, not an accident, but a mooring broke free last Thursday night, I think it was, in Darien Harbor. And caused some damage to a vessel. It appears that the vessel was anchored out kind of near the Red Can. And
Was it anchored? Or
moored. And apparently, according to the marine engineer, what happened was the shaft broke free from the anchor at the bottom of the shaft.
Was it a
Mushroom anchor. He's never seen that happen before.
Because they're usually in the mud, but they don't get any oxygen.
And anyway, the boat ended up on the rocks on the Long Neck Point Road area. Couldn't really get to see it because of the way it was positioned against the wall and whatnot. There, you know, I went down Friday afternoon as soon as they told me about it. The boat was still there. They had called GNC Marine to come take it away, and they took it away.
How big was the boat?
Was it a 31 foot or 28 foot off the top of my head? I sent you the detail. I don't remember how
Yeah.
much it was. It was 30-ish. Member of the Northern Yacht Club.
No fuel spill.
No fuel spill.
No one got hit. Because there was another guy, like Black Watch or Black Dog, the red-hulled sailboat out there, seemed to have his jib torn, and he had his Dodger all screwed up. I saw him.
I didn't go on the water, so I didn't see that.
I wondered if that was him, but no, the boat.
This was a white-hulled boat. That's what I
Hit the
could tell.
ground. Yeah.
And just, that was the crazy blowing wind all Thursday and Thursday night, and whatever. But otherwise than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Tom, do I remember correctly that the mooring specifications for what I'll call new moorings is a door moor type mooring, not a mushroom?
Yes. We're trying to get away from them, but there's still probably the majority of hardware in the water is a mushroom type anchor.
And those aren't pulled every year.
Yes, they are.
Oh, the
If
actual
you use the
mushrooms
marine
are-
contractor that the Northern Yacht Club
He pulls
has,
them, so he inspects them. Yeah.
he inspects, he pulls them up, inspects them, and puts them back down every year. Our requirement is a 3-year inspection. The town requirement is a 3-year inspection.
I guess I'd forgotten that. I thought they were just taking out the tackle from the surface on, like replacing it with a winter stick.
Different places are
No, the
he inspects.
The anchor stays down there through the course of the year, but it is pulled up and inspected and serviced to the through service. But it's not like 5 Mile where they physically remove everything.
Yeah, he puts winter sticks on it, and he'll do the inspection all winter long on the anchor, on the hardware that's in the water. After he takes out the buoys and whatever, puts the winter sticks on, but he doesn't take the physical lead Duramore or whatever the tackle out, the anchor out.
Right.
Because it's
It
set.
does get, they get set. That's
Well,
why
it goes in the water like this, and it ends up down like this because he pulls it
Yeah,
to
because-
get it into the silt
Yeah.
or whatever you can get it into.
Yeah.
So that's all I have. Really.
So on the shellfish, we've got this in process arrangement with CT Aquaculture about how we handle the restocking of Darien shellfish beds from Freight, who's had violations under our contract with them and under state regulation. And that's still in process. CT Aquaculture believes they have a protocol that would allow us to accept the 50 bushels from Freight in a safe manner. And it involves tracking where he gets the 50 bushels and then being with him the next day to deposit them. So we're going to discuss that both with aquaculture and Jamie Stevenson coming up. So that's basically about that.
So what was the issue again that they that the shellfish they were brought in from Scotts Cove and they need 6 months out of a dirty area to cleanse themselves?
Yeah, so he went shellfishing in Scotts Cove's restricted area in several days.
And he put him in his
Prohibited
right.
area, sorry.
And he put him in his special spot. Okay, what spot? And
One of the problems was you actually mixed it in a spot where you're not meant to put even the clams that need to be depurated.
okay,
So he's got 3 beds that are closed. But November 21 they come open again, so we're at the end of the
okay,
period.
so we're almost there.
Yeah.
So when does he usually put his 50 bushels in?
He was required to give them us 50 bushels this year. We did not do that for all the reasons that have been discussed. The term of the lease is 3 years for the co-management bed, so that's 50 bushels a year for 3 years. So I've typically done it in the summer just because.
Okay, I thought it was always done like typically at the end of November or something like that.
No,
I was just trying to figure out when to go clamming.
Well, I gotta say, I went last June and I was literally like just bending down and picking up clams. I had my 5-gallon bucket full within 20 minutes.
Well, we put a lot of clams down last season. In addition to the 50 bushels, we put down, probably another 15 that were our share from whatever the take was from Scott Cove.
Right.
So there were a lot. This year there were none put down.
Right, but then I went back literally 3 weeks ago, and I didn't know whether they had dug themselves down or if they just weren't or if everybody had picked them off the top.
So your view would be a restocking would be helpful.
I'm just saying, I'm just asking, like, if when they get stocked, if they sit there in the winter, do they dig themselves down in the winter? Or
It's my understanding is
warmer water?
it's a question of the water temperature. When the water's warmer, they're pumping more.
Right.
They can dig themselves down. I think
Okay.
once you get below 50 degrees, they go, I don't want to say hibernation, but more dormant. And you don't want to put them down in cold water because then they'll sit above the silage or the mud, and they'll
Because you can't pump in.
subject to predators kind of getting them. So
Got it. Okay.
I think the warmer the water when you put them down, within some, the better.
But the water's clearly in the 60s now, so we're not in that zone. So if you weren't finding any.
No, I gotta say that I didn't have a problem getting my 5-gallon bucket full. It took about 60 minutes instead of 20 minutes, which is actually better because you get to bullshit with your friends a little bit more, But
You had to work, for you say.
but yeah, no, it was I was raking and I was footing and we passed the rake around and it was fine.
Yeah.
So
Well, so we're still working on that. I think there's a way to get clams down, and aquaculture recommends it, so we'll talk more about that. So I wanted to focus on the idea of standing committees in the new format for the meetings. So we've got like 35, 40 minutes. I've got nothing better than this to talk about for the rest. But, if we make short shrift of it, fine too. Don't need to. But this has been socialized with everybody, and so far the reaction's been good. So just to review the overall concept, if you look at the page which says proposed standing committees, the shaded boxes, so just keeping that as our focus at the moment. So I thought Flip quite deftly had us do task forces. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And that was in response to projects we thought would be a good idea. And I think it was effective, and some of them faded away, some of them kept going, like the water task force, that type thing. And the idea here is just a variant on really Flip's task forces, and that is you make standing committees. And these are permanent topics. We can change them or modify them as we see fit going forward, but semi-permanent topics that people would be rotated in and out of. But to the extent people get an interest in a project in one versus the other, have at it. The more volunteers that we have in different things, the better. But the idea here is to engender more focus on certain topics and also more volunteer involvement in certain topics. And the idea is not to get people doing work that's beyond where we all are, and that's a volunteer commission, we only have so much time. But to just put some more ownership of topics on the respective commissioners who sign up for that subject matter. And that just, I think, might help engender more discussion and more activity. So I came up with 4 topical areas that I think would be good subjects for standing committees. I thought the first thing to do, no one seems to have objected to the basic fundamentals of this idea, and so the idea would be for us to now to figure out if these are the right buckets. And that is harbor and coastal safety, and harbor operations, and water quality, and aquaculture. And none of the names are meant to be too restrictive here. They're meant to be, broadly encompassing the important areas in which we're all working. And I've given some, subtitles beneath there that, I think are pretty obvious for the headings. And then maybe, if you will, a bit of a functional element, commission outreach. I'd like to the extent someone's working on a harbor safety project, like Eric Barrett, and how do we notify new rack holders of the right things to do, like float plans and PFDs and name tags for your kayaks, your paddleboards. That's good. That's a substantive thing. But how about also someone publicizing that? So that could be a person taking on commission outreach within a given topic area. So what I wanted to do was, put this idea in front of the commission, and then put these. And I think everybody seems to think it's a good idea. That's the poll. I haven't found one person saying bad idea. Actually, most people have been enthusiastic. So I think it's coming down to what would be the subject matters we would want to have. And these are my first suggestions. And I don't know, what do you guys think of the categories?
Yeah, I think they're good. I think the harbor and coastal safety we might want to talk about. I know we had like a rock buoy task force a couple years ago. We might want to readdress that as a subtopic or something.
We had several incidences of a couple of boats striking a underground rock as they exit on the eastern side of Scott Cove. Greg was telling me we ran into him a couple weeks ago.
I don't generally go into Scotts Cove because it's rocky. It's too scary.
We sample there every 2 weeks with
Unified Water Study. Yeah, I know. I think I know which one. I did that this year coming around back from Cleveland. I wasn't paying attention.
Can't find them, grind them.
So we're talking about putting a buoy out there that basically says rock, but
yeah,
there's the thing about Scott's. This is the whole discussion we've had, but once you start to go, we should put a buoy on this rock.
That's the problem.
There's a lot of rocks.
But I think it's a good topic for us to talk about periodically, whether it's a macro solution or these sites that come up.
Just understand the cost and paperwork.
Yeah, I mean that's the permitting and cost and maintenance part of it.
Right.
Kind of like we kind of got bogged down previously on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's you don't want it to look like that shellfish field down on the way to Stanford, which is little buoys everywhere. It's just one of the facts of boating if you're not paying attention to where you're going.
Bill, the categories look fine to me. One question I had under harbor operations, you've got shellfish as the fourth one.
Total mistake.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks. So, like mechanically, the way I envision these working, but I'm up for different suggestions you guys think might activate this better, was that we have people assigned to the categories. And so the names I have down here actually do look like the initial assignments, with the exception of Rob. I don't think I asked you if water quality.
Yeah, that's, I kind of, I've been sort of batting around this idea of one of these, and I mentioned partially to Bill been looking into a couple of these different programs, companies that produce, like Seabin. There's another one called Waste Shark, and they collect trash that comes around the beach. They have different sort of methods that they use in order to do that. But
wasn't there just a story on the news about an Eagle Scout doing that somewhere? I think it was in Long Island or something. I just remember hearing something about this story, and it was basically like a big vacuum cleaner kind of thing going around the water.
Manhasset Bay has done one for the last year, and actually not had the best results with Seabin.
And it's on collecting stuff that has drifted up on the shore, or is it in the water?
it's in the water. Seabin, the one that's in Manhasset, that hasn't really worked. I've corresponded with, I can't pronounce her last name, but Sarah, who runs a committee over there, the Manhasset Bay Protection Committee. She said that the problem with that's Seabin. It's one that's out on the end of a pier or a dock, and it pumps water through it, and it sort of captures whatever the trash is in there. And she didn't have a lot of luck with it for a couple of reasons. For one thing, somebody keeps taking out the bags that collects all the trash for some unknown reason. People are wanting to get their hands on those bags. And a couple of other things. She said it's really heavy, and especially when it fills up with water, and the maintenance seems to be a big to-do. So that, when you see it in action, you see it filtering all this trash out, but then the practicality of it seems to sort of fall away once you get down to the daily use of it. This other one that I looked at, I've been corresponding with all these people, and they give you the sales pitch, so you hear about how great it all is, and sort of slowly get anecdotal evidence about where it becomes a major problem. But the one company that does this Waste Shark, which is interesting, is a company out of the Netherlands. It's actually a drone that travels through the water, and it captures a certain depth, because the stuff on the surface is one part of it, but there's a column of water where the bulk of the waste, the plastics are in there, and so this is a drone that can be programmed, and it travels around and then docks itself, and it's safe to have it local beaches. It can handle seas of 3 to 4 feet, and it also does data collection, so it can measure O2 levels in the water, and a couple of other, I'm still getting information on it, but a couple of other things that would potentially help with some of the monitoring. They're kind of still being tested in some places, and I know that Manhasset Bay, they worked with Hofstra to try to get some cooperation between them in order to get the Seabin put in. So it's sort of not really clear cut, like what the best solution might be. I think it's
to me, it might all boil down to funding. Like if you could get a company to say, let us do our pilot project in your Darien Boat Club area or something like that, or to get some philanthropy to fund us trying one of these things.
Yeah, I thought about maybe doing like some corporate sponsors, like Hinckley is in the area. You've got Barton and Gray do sort of fractional boat ownership programs. Not boat ownership, but it's more like a boat club where they lease out. They have Hinckley's, and you get your own captain, and it's sort of a private, sort of a high-end experience. And some different, or maybe some local corporate sponsors, maybe an event. I think there's a number of different ways to. I know there's a couple of different private foundations that within Fairfield County that might be willing to sponsor something like that. So yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways to maybe skin that cat.
I think it gets some potential. I think it'd be exciting for families to go down and see the robot cleaning the water.
Yeah.
just draw people to the water and thinking about the quality of the water. I'm not sure the practicality of any of these new
Yeah.
devices, but so to me, that's why it boils down to the funding.
Yeah, I think that, and then I have sort of, it's been in my mind, so I've been going down in the water and just seeing how much debris is in the water, and it's been sort of, it's been kind of, cleaner since I've noticed, since I've been looking.
Yeah, my sense of the debris, plastic and garbage and stuff in the water is that it is not usually too bad. Sometimes when there's and a lot of it comes from the rivers in town, be it Stony Brook or the Norotan River, and there's a big rain, it flushes everything down the river, and that's when you see a lot of stuff, and then it goes up on the land or sinks or whatever it does. But generally speaking, if I think of most days in the harbor, I don't know what your guys' experience is, I don't see a lot of plastic floating in the water.
I see it a little bit against the docks, down by the buoys or the styrofoam things.
There's a ton of stuff that comes down the rivers and gets washed up on shore, but some it goes. I don't know.
I'm sure that's right. I live on Hoyt Street. I clean up the trash on the street every now and then. It is shocking the amount of garbage people throw out the windows of their car.
Yeah.
And it all ends up ultimately in those storm drains as you get a big heavy rain, and it's.
So, my view is largely Parachute Point Beach, and over we've been members there since the boat club since '95 or something. And the beach is being used a lot more than it was in the '90s. Hugely so. Oh yeah, hugely so. That whole area, the boat club and the beaches. I see a lot more trash down there, and it's all. I also now
on the land,
on
the
the water, on the water,
grass,
and
like the high grass.
high grass, the shoreline, and in the water. And I'll say, though, I do kayak a lot now, which I didn't do 5 or 7 years ago, so I'm closer and seeing things closer. But to me, there's a lot more than in the 90s and noughts, and I find it too much. I really see it, and I'm like, again, finding something. So.
And I think that, to your point, in talking to some of these guys, a lot of it does go subsurface, so it'll be hanging there where you might not see it. But you hear a lot of times at the beach, people, because I go to the beach a lot, and I hear people say, "Oh, there's pulling plastic out," and it's sort of just under the surface, maybe 6 inches or something like that, and it's kind of, especially around the shore, it sort of gets a little layer in there sometimes. So
let me rise above this. I think it's a great idea. I think you should keep looking into it. I think everyone also has some interest in that, see what you might come up with. But I think what you're talking about is like the benefit of like having some buckets. You have, let's say each one of us are, the whole commission is assigned, so there's 2 or 3 bodies in each of these buckets. You have 2 or 3 guys all thinking about water quality and coming up with projects. If you want to pursue that, then you've sort of got your bailiwick for the year. Not all the groups or people are going to come up with projects. You don't necessarily have to. On the harbor operations side, we're generally in good shape. We do some routinized things and everything's humming along well. There's an occasional rock or something we're thinking about. But just to have 3 guys or 4 guys who are thinking about harbor operations, it charges them with just, hey, have some consciousness to this. As the meeting comes up next month, if something comes up, would you bring it up? You don't have to bring up news, but that's your bailiwick. I'm not going to look for harbor operations things because you are. And so, there's, on the bottom of the sheet, 3 concepts here is that each standing committee, the volunteers within it, would keep apprised of issues within their subject matter, and have a consciousness to present that at the commission meeting the next month. I think that's the only part where I'm looking for this to provide a little more work, that everyone would sort of get a license and a requirement to just have it in their consciousness through the month to find something to talk about if it's relevant. If it's not, you don't have anything, you don't. But I think in each of these categories, as we go through the year, there should be multiple things coming up that people bring up. And so that I think is the only increase of work, and I don't count enough You know, it's not going to be more than an hour more of your time a month or something like that.
Hey, Bill? I would benefit, but I don't know if the group itself would benefit if we had at least a discussion topic more on the beaches themselves. You know, we do a lot with the water, but we don't do much. I don't hear much about the beach, you know, the sand. And, you know, we have Parks and Rec as ex officio member here, right? But we rarely get to see them. So we don't, it's not like they attend and we hear from them what's happening with the beaches.
Well, Lori Bora is Parks and Rec Commissioner, so she has been coming regularly.
It's the first one she's missed in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
She actually
right.
was going to be here.
Well,
She could.
thanks for that.
Maybe
But
you're
I-
the
but
one
I-
listening.
I agree with that though, because I think that every time I talk to someone, if somebody asks me about the commission or something like that, and people will often, if I'm at a cocktail party or dinner or something like that, they'll say, oh, he's on the harbor commission, and it'll start this whole dialogue, and it's always the beach is always and the dialogue always comes up about, oh, well, do you swim in the water? Or no, it's dirty. And so it's this whole.
Well, so
I think it's an interesting.
I'll be honest, I think that's Parks and Rec, and that I think we take over water on, which I think we're picking up with UWS, and you looking at the debris, and, you know, we've hooked up with David Knopf, and we're trying to understand.
Well, you're speaking, yeah, it's true, but you're speaking to an action item. Parks and Rec, they have the action item. This commission may not, but at least I would benefit from hearing more about it, being educated.
Okay, so maybe that's a charge to Lori to bring more of their plate to us, a little summary of what they're up to, so we're getting apprised, and maybe we would find more of our activities should be tangential to the. I think that's a good suggestion. The most we've wandered inland is the boat ramp, which for a long time we were told that's not your purview, but we gave them sort of another amicus brief on that, which I think was helpful in helping it get over the hump. Does anyone have a different view on? No. So I'll ask. I'll talk to Lori and see if we can get more of a download of what's happening on the beaches from their front.
Great.
It's good idea. And so these 2 or 3 individuals per standing committee would also be in charge of projects that come up. And that's not to say if David's not really excited about a debris collection device, David shouldn't get involved. But I'm just saying you have the standing designation of individuals that, you know, they should be on the lookout for projects. And if they see anything they think should be executed, they should bring it up with the commission as a whole, and we as a whole should say, yeah, that's a good idea, guys, go after it. Or say, no, we don't think that's a good idea. In other words, individuals in the standing committee should use the commission as their sounding board in approval. Gate open, gate closed. And, you know, if you don't have projects you have time to work on or don't think are valuable, then no projects happen. But if you know, like Eric Barrett likes the idea of some sort of education device for people getting their kayak racks from Pam Geary's Parks and Rec, and he's willing to take a run at that with the scouts. And so, you know, let him do that on his timetable, and get people to help him here or not. So we're not trying to crowd his schedule. He's just come up with a good idea, and we'll figure out how we can do it in his schedule. So. You know, lastly, just I think it would, you know, be helpful if we've got 2 or 3 people on each of these standing committees. Just, you know, make sure the workload's divided. So, you know, if Harbor and Coastal Safety has got some issues to bring up, you know, don't make the same person do it every month. Maybe just, you know, you have to do it every 3 months. That's why it just shouldn't be much of a burden. Or you split up categories how you see fit. So this is just trying to stimulate a little more discussion, activity, and downloading of the activities, not being reasonable in people's time schedules. So it sounds like the categories work for people. If we see changes in the future, we'll suggest them and make them. But otherwise, why don't we launch with this then?
I'll help Grant on the harbor operations.
Okay. And so that leaves Dave Deaver and Tom Lochtefeld unassigned.
Yeah, I could do like maybe harbor and coastal safety.
Okay.
Sort of my interest.
Okay. I'll see what Dave would like to do.
And I think I could, help provide quite a bit of outreach with, through the Darien Boat Club as well. So
Yeah.
I've got a pretty extensive mailing list.
I've talked.
Not that they read my emails.
Grant and I were talking about what he wanted to get involved in, and he said harbor operations sounds good for me. He liked working on this buoy, Tom, with you. And he also mentioned that he brings the yacht club to bear on stuff, and I said, yeah, that's a cross-cutting thing in all this, and same with you at the boat club. So, all right, then I think we basically have some categories. So these categories, we'll flip assigned and Tom now, and I'll get Dave Deaver to pop in one of these buckets. So if you all from the November...
Have we heard from Dave?
Email-wise, he said he couldn't attend tonight, but I
Yeah,
did
he's
hear...
been sick.
Has he been sick in the hospital?
He's been back and forth a couple different hospitals up in Bridgeport.
Maybe that was like 2 or 3 months ago, but that's current now.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Reach out.
So the only other sort of spill-off of this is how it affects our meetings. And it's sort of been interweaving in and out of this. So we've got a page on our proposed new meeting format. And a little bit of rearrangement. I'm suggesting the focus of our meetings be on these functional areas. And a little away then from officer reports. And that is, demoting my speech time. I think I should just be sticking more on administrative matters and meetings I've had with external people. And also the Shellfish Commissioner's report, I think, same thing. You're now within a bucket of activity, aquaculture. You can get just as much exposure in that bucket as before, but it's more towards the function. And Tom, we'll continue to keep you as ex officio harbor master whenever you want to say anything. You've got the stage in item number 4 here. But I really thought the idea here is to make these buckets the main discussion points. And so what's brought up by the individuals in those standing committees will be the discussion material, the functional material for that meeting, the main thrust. Does that sound smart to people as a way to run?
Good.
I think so. So we'll see where this gets us. I mean, again, I think it's like task forces, but a little more regularized, perhaps.
Yep.
See how it goes. So I guess the only thing I'd say is for your standing committee next time, November 18th, if you guys would think of things you want to bring up or just some news events. It can be a pass. You don't have anything. Typically it might just be 3 to 5 minutes of mentioning things like I mentioned, things I've done in the month. Or if you want to dig into a project like marine debris and, have 4 minutes of trying to socialize people to your idea and get it going, that's fine. We'll put that in the agenda, and that's good. So, that was the last I had to say. Is there other business anyone wants to bring up?
Are there minutes that...
Online, did they go around? Or how'd that work? I saw them online.
The minutes got submitted. Yeah.
We're doing it electronically now.
Okay.
But did we send them around to everybody saying?
Yeah.
Did we? I might have missed it. I had a really busy month.
Yeah, I copied everyone and then
I saw
spacing on their
I
names.
saw they were written up, and then to Donna.
Donna, sorry, yeah, Donna. Long day.
We've been doing hey, they're going, and by virtue of being filed and no one objecting, and
Gotcha.
2 people, him and I, and the notes taker being in agreement on what they are. So we're going to streamline. We always have the ability to claw them back. Don has let me know. Something we don't like, we can refine this. So. Anything else? Then we're adjourned.
All right.